After years of speculation, weeks of testimony, and 2 trials, he was the one who officially declared Karen Read not guilty in the murder of John O'Keefe.
It's been 2.5 months since a Massachusetts jury found Karen Read not guilty of killing her police officer boyfriend.
On a bitterly cold January night in 2022, as snow thickened over the quiet streets of Canton, Massachusetts, Karen Read dropped off her boyfriend John O'Keefe, who was a Boston police officer, at a late-night house party. The two had spent the evening moving between local bars, drinking with friends as a winter storm steadily intensified. Shortly after midnight, Read pulled her Lexus SUV up outside the home of fellow Boston police officer Brian Albert. O'Keefe stepped out into the swirling snow, and Read drove away, leaving him behind in the dark as the blizzard began to take hold. Hours passed, and by early morning, panic set in. Read returned to the neighborhood with friends frantic and confused, searching for O'Keefe when he failed to come home or answer calls. As daylight crept in through the falling snow, the search ended in horror. O'Keefe was found lying unresponsive in a snowbank on the front lawn of the Albert residence. His body was partially buried by snow, his head visibly bloodied from blunt force trauma. He was pronounced dead with hypothermia cited as a contributing cause. Prosecutors quickly framed the case as one of anger and intoxication. They alleged that Read, enraged after an argument and impaired by alcohol, deliberately reversed her SUV into O'Keefe, striking him with enough force to shatter her taillight and leave him gravely injured in the freezing storm. According to the state, she then fled the scene, abandoning him to die. Investigators pointed to fragments of red plastic near O'Keefe's body, vehicle data indicating a sudden reverse movement, and Read's own distress statements when the body was discovered as evidence supporting charges of second-degree murder, manslaughter while intoxicated, and leaving the scene of a fatal accident. Read, however, maintained her innocence from the beginning, describing herself as trapped in a nightmare fueled by lies and institutional protection. Her defense argued that O'Keefe never entered the house, but was instead injured in an altercation inside, possibly attacked by a family dog, and later dragged outside. They claimed law enforcement insiders orchestrated a cover-up, planting evidence to shift blame onto Read and protect those inside the home. The first trial ended in a deadlocked jury, reflecting deep public division and doubt. When the case returned to court with a retrial, scrutiny intensified. In June 2025, the jury delivered a mixed verdict. Karen Read was acquitted of all homicide-related charges, found guilty only of operating under the influence. The decision closed one of Massachusetts' most polarizing criminal cases, leaving behind lingering questions about accountability, investigative integrity, and a fragile line between justice and loyalty within the system. Karen Read was born in Taunton, Massachusetts, and spent parts of her childhood and teenage years between Massachusetts and Blacksburg, Virginia, experiences that shaped her independence and adaptability from a young age. She attended Coyle and Cassidy High School, where she was known as a bright, motivated, and socially engaged student who balanced academics with extracurricular involvement. Her strong interest in numbers and business led her to Bentley University, where she earned both her bachelor's and master's degrees in finance. Karen went on to build a solid professional career working as a financial analyst at Fidelity Investments, a role that demanded precision, discipline, and resilience. Later, she returned to Bentley as an adjunct professor, teaching finance and sharing her real-world experience with students, while maintaining her corporate career. Throughout her adult life, Karen faced significant health challenges that tested her strength. She was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, a condition that required multiple surgeries and long periods of recovery. Years later, she also received a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. Despite these setbacks, she remained determined and continued to push forward, maintaining her career, independence, and active lifestyle. Friends and colleagues describe her as driven and persistent, someone who refused to let illness define her future. She eventually settled in Mansfield, Massachusetts, where she built a stable life rooted in both professional success and personal perseverance. John O'Keefe grew up in Braintree, Massachusetts, and from an early age felt drawn to public service. He pursued degrees in criminal justice and went on to dedicate 16 years of his life to the Boston Police Department. Known among colleagues as dependable and committed, John built a reputation as someone who took his responsibilities seriously, both on and off the job. He lived in Canton, Massachusetts, and was deeply connected to his family, friendships, and community. John's life took a profound turn in 2013 when his sister passed away from brain cancer. Just months later, tragedy struck again when his brother-in-law died suddenly of a heart attack. Faced with an unthinkable situation, John stepped forward to become the guardian of his young niece and nephew. He embraced the role fully, transforming his home into a place of stability, structure, and care. Balancing the demands of police work with parenting responsibilities, he raised the children with love, discipline, and devotion, earning admiration from friends and neighbors who saw the sacrifices he made for his family. Karen and John first crossed paths in 2004, shortly after finishing college. They dated briefly during that time, sharing a connection that felt promising but ultimately faded as career paths and life priorities pulled them in different directions. For years, they lost contact and built separate lives. In 2020, during the isolation of the COVID-19 pandemic, John reached out to Karen through Facebook with a simple, casual message, something along the lines of, "Hey, blast from the past. How's things?" That small gesture reopened the door, and what began as a friendly exchange quickly reignited into something deeper. Over the next 2 years, their relationship grew steadily and meaningfully. Karen became integrated into John's family life, forming a close bond with his niece and nephew and helping care for them as part of the household routine. She participated in family dinners, school-related responsibilities, and quiet nights at home, finding fulfillment in the sense of belonging they shared. Karen deeply admired John's commitment as a guardian, and friends noted how naturally she fit into the family dynamic, bringing warmth, support, and energy into their lives. Like most long-term relationships, theirs was not without challenges. Both had demanding schedules, strong personalities, and the normal stresses that come with balancing work, family, and personal health. There were moments of tension and disagreement, but there were also countless shared memories filled with laughter, companionship, and mutual support. Together, they built a life that felt stable and familiar, grounded in trust and everyday routines, until that sense of normalcy was abruptly shattered by the tragedy that unfolded in early 2022. Prosecutors argued that Karen Read killed John O'Keefe because their relationship had deteriorated significantly by early 2022. According to the state, what began as a warm and hopeful reunion during the pandemic gradually turned into a troubled partnership marked by mounting tension, repeated arguments, and growing jealousy. As the months passed, everyday stresses, emotional insecurity, and frequent drinking allegedly intensified conflicts between the couple, creating an unstable and volatile dynamic. Witnesses described how the relationship initially felt lighter and more affectionate, especially when Karen became involved in the lives of John's niece and nephew. However, several people, including O'Keefe's niece, testified that the tone changed after a vacation to Aruba around New Year's 2022. After that trip, they said arguments became more frequent and more intense, with raised voices, frustration, and long emotionally charged phone calls. Friends noticed the couple clashing during social outings, particularly on nights when alcohol was heavily involved. Prosecutors portrayed Red as increasingly possessive, claiming she did not want other women around O'Keefe and often accused him of pulling away emotionally. The night of January 28th was presented by the state as the breaking point. After hours of bar hopping, Read and O'Keefe drank at establishments including C.F. McCarthy's and the Waterfall Bar and Grill with friends. Alcohol, prosecutors argued, lowered inhibitions and magnified existing resentment. Text messages exchanged earlier that day showed Read questioning O'Keefe about whether he was interested in someone else, asking why he seemed distant, and expressing feelings of hurt and insecurity. The prosecution said she felt ignored and rejected, especially when O'Keefe wanted to continue the night at a gathering at Brian Albert's house, while she preferred to go home. According to the state, that perceived rejection ignited intense anger. Prosecutors emphasized that Read had been drinking heavily herself and was emotionally charged as she drove O'Keefe to the house in Canton during a worsening snowstorm. They argued that the emotional conflict did not end when he exited the vehicle, but escalated immediately afterward. Angry voicemails left by Red in the early morning hours became a central pillar of the prosecution's case. After dropping O'Keefe off around 12:30 a.m., Read called him repeatedly, more than 50 times, and left a series of profanity-laced messages. In them, she shouted insults, screamed accusations, and at one point yelled, "John, I fucking hate you," calling him a loser and expressing rage. Prosecutors told the jury these messages revealed her state of mind in the moments after the drop-off, arguing they reflected uncontrolled fury rather than concern. The state alleged that during this emotional eruption, Reed reversed her Lexus SUV and struck O'Keefe in the driveway or front area of the home, hitting him with enough force to cause fatal injuries. Prosecutors argued she then drove away, leaving him incapacitated in the snow, where blunt force trauma and hypothermia ultimately led to his death. They claimed the broken taillight, vehicle data, and her behavior afterward supported this version of events. Jealousy played a major role in the alleged motive. Prosecutors pointed to evidence that Reed frequently accused O'Keefe of cheating and flirting with other women. They also highlighted her own flirty text exchanges with ATF agent Brian Higgins in the weeks leading up to O'Keefe's death, arguing this added emotional strain and fueled insecurity on both sides. The state portrayed Red as prone to suspicion and confrontation, claiming her belief that O'Keefe was unfaithful contributed to repeated explosive arguments. In the retrial, prosecutors refined this narrative of a relationship unraveling under pressure. They argued that jealousy, alcohol, and unresolved resentment combined on that final night, leading Red to act out of anger rather than walk away. While the jury ultimately rejected the homicide charges, acquitting her of murder, manslaughter, and leaving the scene in June 2025, and convicting her only of operating under the influence, the prosecution's theory centered on how personal conflict, emotional volatility, and intoxication could escalate into irreversible consequences.